It's really shadow. It looks like a piss stain. I didn't notice.
He's hard at work here. Yeah.
Welcome to the latest episode of Over a Pint. Really excited this week. We have Dean Jackson.
Imagine that.
From a lot of companies and businesses. So why don't you introduce yourself to the group?
Dean Jackson, founder of GoGoAgent.com and the Listing Agent Lifestyle Podcast.
Nice. So this week, we're doing it a little bit differently. We're not having beer.
Right.
Because it's early in the morning
here. So we're gonna
go a little
do what responsible people do.
So what are you drinking this morning?
So I have some sweet kale, raw organic green juice, packed with parsley, kale, pear, pineapple, and lemon. Enrich your blood vessels, improve your kidney function, rich in vitamin K, high in antioxidants, all while we're recording a podcast.
Yeah, you're just killing a bunch of birds with one stone.
It's perfect.
And I'm doing amazing mango. It doesn't have those extra benefits, but mango's delicious. So
there you go, perfect.
We're running with it.
I like it. Yeah. Oh,
perfect.
It's nice of you to come right to my
right into your
door here. Yeah. Just like
cheers. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So
that's good green juice right there.
You're in a lot of industries now, but you originally came from real estate.
I did, 30 years. So 1988, I started out.
That's when you were first licensed?
Yes, 1988.
What led you to get into real estate?
Well, it's a funny story because I used to play tennis, and that was my aspiration. I was in Florida on a tennis scholarship, pursuing, playing tennis.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where somebody said the right words at the right time. Yeah. We were playing these these events where if you win the tournament, the prize money is like $1,500, all pursuing ATP points, so you can get and play on the satellite circuit. And so my doubles partner was from Sweden, and he knew a guy who was a former tennis player from Sweden who happened to own a real estate company in Florida. Yeah. So we would go and stay with him, and we play these exhibition matches at the Club Med down there. And Lars was a guy, he got to 180 in the world.
Wow.
And was 26 years old. And when we were hanging out with him, he was mid 40s. Yeah. So here he was, 26 years old. He had a knee injury that wasn't career ending, but it was kind of had to take some time off, give him time to reevaluate. And he had this epiphany. He thought, there's theoretically 179 people in the world that are better than me at what I do.
Yeah.
And I'm living hand to mouth basically with a declining window. That's pretty high up there. When you think about it, there's only 179 people in the world that are better than you. And yet you've got a declining window.
Well, that money drops exponentially.
Absolutely. And he thought to himself, I wonder what the 180th ranked businessman in the world is making right now.
Yeah.
And that was an immediate, lane shift for him. And we had that conversation. I'll never forget it because we were on his boat on the way back to his house. And it was just like the right words at the right time. And I thought, that's like, I was already seeing guys that were going down that tennis route, that they're either 28 out there still grinding, or they're at a country club teaching tennis to kids and housewives, and I didn't want that to be me.
Yeah.
So I thought, I'm going to switch to business, and real estate has been a very good business to Lars, and I've always loved it. So I went, I was 21 at the time. And so went back 1988, got my real estate license, started my career in Halton Hills, outside of Toronto.
A little different now than it was then.
Yeah, but still the same kind of thing. People would commute from Halton Hills to the city, and so it was a good place to start.
How long were you an agent for?
So I was an agent for 7-8 years. Mm-hmm. And what I did, it was a really interesting time because when I started out, everything that I've done up till now has been this evolution. of two loves, real estate and marketing.
Yeah.
Right. And so I started out like everybody. I started doing cold calling, and I was making 100 cold calls a day.
Yeah.
And it was working. And then I discovered direct response advertising. And I started really going deep into marketing because I've always loved it. And I started experimenting with some things in my own business and developed some turnkey systems that I ended up licensing to other realtors around Toronto. I did a program we did a guide called Toronto and Beyond, 40 great places to live within an hour of the city. And we had that system licensed to 40 agents all around.
One in every area.
One in every area, yeah, including a young Brad Lamb at the time was our central Toronto condos, Dan Cooper in Oakville, Daryl King. I mean, all these, went on to have really great careers. But that was the big thing for me, is when I figured out that I could put words on a postcard or in an ad and have people call me instead of me calling them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget the first time that this was, a revelation that I would never have to make a cold call again, is I started out with Roll a Page. Yeah. And so Roll a Page at the time had these education booklets for first-time buyers. And so I sent out a postcard and to apartment complexes with a business reply card on it. This is pre-internet, of course. Yeah. So I sent out the postcard, and when I drove into the office, we had a big window in the front, and our secretary, Joanne, I could see her from the thing, and I was coming in, and she was waving something over her head as I'm coming in, and she presents this to me as I'm coming. It's this little stack of these business reply cards with a rubber band around them. And it was 11 people who had responded for the book on how to buy your first house. And I thought, I remember, I still get that giddy feeling because I knew right then that I would never make another cold call again, And so I went in, and instead of making cold calls, I started calling these 11 people. And I ended up connecting with 6 of them. And every one of them was friendly. They knew why I was calling. They wanted to buy a house. They were excited to talk about it. I would have had to dial, for 2 days to get that many response. To get that number of people that were that friendly. I didn't get hung up on once. I didn't get yelled at or anything. It was just a complete thing. Plus, I got 3 hours a day of my life back. Right? Because that's
a huge change.
Absolutely. And that allowed me to then start working on my business instead of in it, as Michael Gerber talks about.
Very similar to my start in real estate. I remember my first day at the office, I was Remaxed. My broker just, I'm like, what do I do? He just dropped a phone book and he goes, you can start at the first page.
I started on the D's, by the way.
I started at A.
I jumped right in. I didn't want to start at the A's because I figured everybody did that, but they probably ran out of juice at the D's.
They only made it to there. That's why I tried cold calling and hated it. Tried door knocking, got a deal on the second house, and then that was about it. But then I built the worst landing page you can imagine. I bought the domain listingsearch.com, and literally the entire page was just white with 5 boxes. There's name, email, phone number, what kind of house you're looking for, what's your price range, submit. That was it.
You're welcome.
And it started getting leads. I was like, this is so much better. And I immediately switched to really diving deep into the digital. Now you came when there's no Facebook ads and Google ads.
There was nothing. When I started out,
If you went back now, and had to start from scratch now, how would you start compared to how you started back then?
Well, you mean if I were starting out
if you
in
got
2018,
a new license
right
today, what would you do?
Immediately. I mean, I know now everything that I know. I've had 30 years of experience on this now, right? So I know exactly what I would do. And that's, I think right now, everybody's sort of debating the future of real estate, right? Everybody thinks that real estate's going to be disrupted, and which it is in a way. But the thing that I've noticed over this 30 years is that certain things can be disrupted and certain things can't.
Yeah.
You know, like back in 1988, the only way that somebody could get information about houses is through an agent.
Yeah.
They had to go to an agent, or they had to either see a sign and call to find out about it, or go to an open house, or walk into a real estate office, or call them.
Yeah.
And so we had an information advantage, right? Now, 30 years later, every piece of data about every property is available instantly on any device right now, right? So they don't need us for the information. And it's been an evolution. Like, we had a really great run where even in the early 2000s, like late 1999, when search all the homes online was a great message, and everybody, it would work. All you do is say that and people would come to your site. Now that's the normal thing, right? Search all the things on there. Yeah. So I think that I would take, and I'm kind of advocating for this with our listing agent lifestyle, that I would take a listing centric approach to the business, where everything would revolve around getting and marketing listings, rather than trying to find just focusing on a buyer-centric type of thing.
Which is what most of our clients want too. Like, they all want that because you can leverage a listing so much more than a buyer.
Yeah.
And it's not even close.
Yes. Yeah. But most people don't leverage it,
at all.
Which is really interesting, Like, I think there's the thing, is I look at the, this approach to answer your question, how I would start is I would choose a category, an area where I would like to dominate, where I would, like, I'm looking at a long-term view.
How narrow would you go with an area? Like, how specific?
I think that I would start looking at, depends how much money I had, right? Like, a lot of times if you have capital, then I would choose the area that would take a two-pronged approach. So I'd start with, in every market, there's a bell curve distribution of price ranges, right? And I think that starting out and getting a foothold in that front slope of the bell curve, like if you take the part where it's like the homes that are sort of like middle of the market, but on the
lower end,
on the lower side of that, just so that it's sort of reachable for first-time buyers, and that those people are likely to be moving up to the other side. So there's just so much action there, right? So much leverage around it. Typically, those homes have higher turnover rates. There's more demand, more activity from them. Something can be like townhouses. I think townhouses are a great transitional part of the market. Yeah. So I would focus on that, but approach it like the category, instead of trying to focus on convincing people to list their house with me. I would start going at it like they're going to list their house with me, and I'm not going to wait for them to list it before I start going to find a buyer.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is to put yourself in this sort of market maker position. So we did an example, we did this in Florida, and where I live in Winter Haven, there's lakefront homes are the most expensive homes in the market. So that's, they're the most in demand kind of thing. There's 2,100 lakefront homes in Winter Haven. And so we started out with taking, I have a program called Getting Listings. It's part of our GoGo Agent platform. And so mailing to those homes, mailing to the just the lakefront homes, trying to find people who are curious about what their lakefront house would sell for. So we offer a July 2018 report on Winter Haven lakefront house prices. And so what you're getting there is you're identifying people who at some point are going to be thinking of selling their house. They're thinking about it now. It's a good chance that they're going to sell their house in the next 1 year, 2 years, whatever it is. So I would start with that, but then at the same time, I would start looking for buyers for lakefront homes because it's a category, right?
Yeah.
So we would run in the Homes and Land magazine or on Facebook ads or whatever it is, offering the guide to Winter Haven lakefront house prices.
Yeah.
And it becomes this triangulation opportunity, right? Where I always tell this story, and being here in Toronto is great to tell it because Molson, Canadian, in the US, they had a really incredible ad campaign where they would run print ads. They would run a print ad in Cosmo magazine, the women's magazine.
Random.
Yeah, no, here's why. So they'd run a print ad in Cosmo, and it was this model-looking guy, the Cosmo dream guy with the, long hair, the toque, the sweater with puppies in a field, right? It was an image ad. And the only copy on it would be, his address, the intersection between masculinity and sensitivity, his beer, Molson Canadian, right? And the Molson logo there.
Yeah.
So they run that. Then the only reason they would run that ad is so that they could run this ad in the men's magazines. And the men's magazine ads would say, hundreds of thousands of women pre-programmed for your convenience. And they would say, well, you're reading this ad. Women all across America are reading a completely different ad, scientifically designed to increase the attraction they feel for men who drink Molson.
That's amazing.
And it's the best. And they'd have a picture of the ad, then they'd have a little illustration that shows this attraction area in the woman's brain going off when she sees the Molson and she's associating it to you. And it was just like the most brilliant thing ever, right? Because
that's really smart.
Understanding what their audience really wants.
Yeah.
And so you look at that, and they would do things like buy the back cover of these men's magazines, and they would make what they call twin cover technology. So they'd put an alternate upside down cover on Maxim magazine or any of those. And it would be like Trust Fund magazine or, something like that would, when you wanted to look like something, you could turn that magazine over instead of Maxim, it's got Trust Fund magazine on the thing. But then they take the inside back cover and they'd say, think of it as a $90,000 investment in our relationship. And they explain their twin cover technology.
That's amazing.
Right? That they're looking out for you. That's the thing, right? So you take that kind of mindset here, and what we're doing is rather than trying to convince people to list their house with us so that we can use that listing to now go out and find a buyer, we would start looking for the buyer by advertising the guide to lakefront house prices. Now we've got this pool of people who are looking for lakefront homes. We've got this pool of people who are thinking about selling their lakefront homes. And we're the only ones who know that both of these lists exist. So again, this is how we can create our information advantage. Now you go in on a listing presentation, and instead of saying to people, once we list your house, here's what our marketing plan will do to help find a buyer. And that's what everybody else is saying. Now you can go in and say, we started looking for the buyer for your house 180 days ago. And here's the list of all these people that are looking for lakefront homes. And as a matter of fact, I sent out an email to them before I was coming over to see you to tell them I was coming over to see about it. And these 10 people want me to send them the information about your house as soon as we...
Wow.
Yeah, so now it feels like, for a seller, from their perspective, it feels like they're closer to the goal line. That's what they really want. Nobody wants to list their house.
They want to be on the market long.
They want to want the house sold.
So when someone signs up on the buyer side, how does that kind of nurture work, since you don't necessarily have, especially early on, you don't have the house yet? How does that nurture process look like?
So the category of lakefront homes is searchable. So you can we would send out a weekly email called Lakefront Weekly. And it was all the updates on all the new lakefront homes. Here's the lakefront homes that are on the market right now.
So it's every single, so that's all, like there's no other communications going out, it's just here's the homes?
Here's the homes, but then always leading to the next step, always saying to people, like, you never want to, there's so much here. So part of the thing is realizing what makes that approach to things work is when you understand that you're making an investment in a portfolio of leads that's going to yield over a long period of time, right? So that you look at it that one of the things that really changed my perspective on things was I discovered when I really started going deep into lead conversion, I found some studies and started doing case studies and stuff on my own to test this out, but that said that roughly just over half of the people who inquire about anything today will buy what it is they've inquired about within 18 months. And only 15% of them will do it in the first 90 days, and 85% will do it longer than 90 days. So I'm someone who, you look at that, it just happens to be 5 times more value in a bundle of 100 leads that you generate today in the future, beyond 90 days, than in that first 90 days. Now, what most people do is they're taking this approach that they want to run an ad on Monday, they want to get some response on Tuesday, tie them down by Wednesday, show them a house on Friday, and wrap it up before the weekend. Right? That's the way people have this dream fantasy that real estate and Facebook advertising in particular works, right? But it's not that way, and nobody really has the fortitude or the system in place to stick with it and maintain this relationship with people.
Our biggest challenge with our clients is especially because we're mainly Facebook ads. We figured out how to get leads as much as you want. That's the easy part. It's that next part with our clients where there's this huge drop off in conversion, and that's so dependent on the individual agent, like how good they are on the phone. So we're trying to be so that's one of the reasons that I ended up researching a lot of what you're talking about, is I realized that that's our biggest gap was what happens after the leads generated, because that part's easy. And now it's convert them. It's generate, we had a client literally over 1,000 leads, not one deal.
We're right now in the middle, so I'm coming up September will be 5-year, we're going through a 5-year case study with Tony Kelsey in Scarborough for our Getting Listings program. I've shown you that before, right? So
I actually had a phone call with him last week.
Oh, did you? Okay, great. So the thing that's the most interesting about it is that, he's been generating leads. So he did his first transaction after 5 months, right? Got the listing and then the property sold. So started mailing in September, mailed all the way, got the listing in January, it sold in February, and got his first commission there. But if you were to draw a line then straight up over that next 3.5 years on the 4-year chart here, there were 13 people that he's done transactions with who responded in that first 5 months. So what most people do is they get the leads, they call them right away because they think they've heard these studies. If you don't call them in 5 minutes, there's a 89% less chance that you're going to get the deal, which is the stupidest thing ever. But they try and jump on them, and they try all these techniques, call them on one phone, then call them on the other one, and then call them right back to try and bulldog them into getting on the phone. And they're putting all of their eggs on this buy now basket, that they're trying to get people to take action now on their timeline, rather than just patiently decide and discover whether somebody's a 5-star prospect, whether they, are somebody that we're going to be able to work with.
Because I know the email marketing is the best way to follow up long term. What are you doing to identify that 15% early on? Because I know if you're not jumping on the phone right away, I assume you're doing something else.
My whole thing, this is the thing. So for 30 years in real estate, 25 or 24 of those years now, offering things that help other realtors get transactions, what I've realized is that if I could come up, the holy grail of it would be that if I could come up with a system that worked, that my provocation in doing it was, what would I do if my phone only accepted incoming calls? That's the big thing. So I've cracked that code. You know, that there's the thing is you don't have to call anybody, and in most cases, it's not helping by calling them, right? Because most of the time, people are really just chasing people away. Like if somebody responds to something that feels like information, and then you call them up and you're immediately now trying to get them,
pushing them forward.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not ready. They're going to immediately like just say, "Oh no, we were just curious. We're not selling," right? Like that's really what happens more than anything. But if you don't do that, then you still get the opportunity to continue the relationship with people, right? Which pays off in the long run and in the short run. Because I'm not saying, we look at it that we understand that not everybody is ready to buy right now. Some people are, and we're ready to accommodate those people. But we do it in a way that starts with the natural flow of things. Like I mentioned 5-star prospects, and what I mean by a 5-star prospect is someone who's willing to engage in a dialogue, who's friendly and cooperative, they know what they want, they know when they want it, and they'd like us to help them. Those are the 5 requirements in order for us to work with somebody. And so the typical scenario, not just in real estate, in any kind of marketing and lead generation, is that they're starting at the bottom and trying to jump on people and get them to buy now, right? Here's what I want you to do, and I want you to do it now, without any regard for whether what they want, or whether they're friendly and cooperative or building any kind of relationship with them, right? So if they have to be all 5, then I look at it that let's start with the top. Let's start and see, are they willing to engage in a dialogue? Because if they're not willing to engage in a dialogue, odds of them being willing to let you help them are much lower.
So I've seen, because like I've obviously been diving really deep into a lot of your content, so I kind of know the answer, but I think it's really great for them. So because you're not doing that phone call, how do you get them to engage in that conversation?
Email. So so we would say to people, so if somebody comes to a real estate site, we would maybe send an email to them after the sort of welcome email that we send, and say, hey Andrew, welcome aboard. Are you an investor? Are you looking for a house to live in? Just a short, personal, expecting a reply email.
Have you ever tried that and then tested it like over text instead of email?
Well, sometimes if we get the text, yes, we can do that. It's the same
Have
thing.
you found
but
any
most of the
difference
times, well, texts you always go right to. Texts you're getting there. So when we do our instant open house landing pages or info box flyers, often people will respond by text, so we can text them that way, but it works just as well by email. Predominantly people are much more likely to give you their email address than their cell phone.
Before I get to the next point, is it true that you invented the squeeze page? I think I was watching a video saying that.
That's funny. So back in, I've been doing this for a long time, right? So right at the beginning, what I really discovered was that the less you put on a page, like at the time, you could put a sign up. People were saying, sign up for my newsletter, right? That was their thing as one of the options on a page. And so I invented this process of doing like the table of contents of Cosmo magazine, where I would say, all these things that would tell you what's inside. Instead of saying, click here, it would say free inside or more inside. So you'd go down and see this list of things that you really want, and then it would get to a point where it said free instant access. Use your name and your email address. And as soon as I did that, response rates went way up, because if you have any number of options for people on a page that they will you've limited your chances that they'll sign up for your newsletter or leave their name and email by quite a bit. So we've stripped it down to the only option on the page is to leave your name and your email address. So that's a process, that I invented back in 1988.
That's awesome. I was 1. That's a little while ago.
Are you kidding me?
I was born in 87.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
No, this was 1998, so you were 11.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, you're not that young.
Yeah.
Wow.
So from when you're looking at squeeze page, especially in real estate, because like one thing we've noticed, and partially it's because of like they're not consistent with follow-up, is that when the clients don't get the phone number, their chance of conversion goes way down. But I think a lot of it's because they're not.
But it's because their only thing, and the realtors are more obsessed about getting the phone number
than any other industry.
And it's like, but it's not helping at all. It's not helping.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Like, do most of your squeeze page require a phone number, or is it even an option on the phone?
I don't require anything.
Yeah.
My whole thing is that I look at it that I'd rather have somebody voluntarily. It tells me more that somebody voluntarily left their name and their email address than that it was required.
Do you even put the phone number as like a field on all of them for real estate? Usually.
I know. Remember, my whole thing is that I want it to.
Yeah.
What would I do?
To call you.
Yes, exactly. I want to get the most response.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about them. I mean, to this day, everything that I do, we never talk to anybody on the phone. I mean, it's like even on the entrepreneur side and marketing worlds. I just did an event here in this boardroom. And it's a $5,000 event, 12 people, and never talked to anybody, all email to fill the event, So I think that email is a really valid communication tool. And if you just, you use it right, then you got, it's even more effective than
when you're looking at like an event here where you did 12 people, 5,000.
Yeah.
Because that's a big investment for a lot of business owners to jump in. Like I've done events like that too, like as an attendee. Do you look at how the different ways they came into your network?
It's all email, how they all come into my world. I mean, I have a very, this model that I use I use it for so many different things, but I do a podcast, which is I look at a podcast as a lead conversion tool. Yeah. Right, so I record a podcast, and that's it. I record the podcast. We get the podcast transcribed. I have a writer that takes 300 to 500 word articles out of the podcast, polishes them to make them readable instead of talking. But it's all my words. Yeah, it's everything that I've said. Yeah, exactly. Just making it flow, and then we send out 3 emails a week, including the announcement about the new podcast episode. Yeah. And then, but everyone, here's the thing, is that we're always then saying, whenever you're ready, here's 3 ways that can help you.
It's interesting because I, studying your stuff, saw you talk about that. And I think we were at the Nicholas Kuzmich Mastermind event, and you were talking about transcribing. So I tried that the first time when I did a 4-minute video on why you shouldn't boost posts. I was like, all right, I'm going to take that, turn it into a blog post. Actually posted the blog post last night. Yeah. Cost me $4 to get it transcribed and made $1,000 from someone seeing it. And it was just like, this quick.
There you go.
Happened right away.
You're welcome.
It works. Yeah.
$1,000 more, you can come to the next event.
You're like, well, that's funny. I also tried the 9-word email. That was another 4 or 5.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh, perfect.
I've been studying your stuff.
So you're in the money. Yeah. This is the thing. This is where I say is that I really believe if you go like Zig Ziglar once very famously said, you can get anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. Yeah. Right.
And I enjoy that too. It's fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
congratulations. I've been studying your I've known about you for a little while, but I've been kind of diving deep for 2 months. Yeah. And in 2 months, I don't think I've paid you anything. No. And I've probably made $7,000 or $8,000 just off using your methods into what I'm doing.
Look at that.
So it's been amazing.
That's great.
Yeah,
I like that.
You.
Yeah.
So if you ever need a testimonial for don't pay him, it
works. Right there. Yeah.
It just works.
So so that whole thing though, what you're doing now Like so I wrote a book called The Self-Milking Cow. So you see my little cow on the thing. That I find that, most entrepreneurs are really, the thing that's frustrating for them is that they're trying to do too much. They're trying to be a self-milking cow.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make the milk and milk themselves and package it and take it to market and all this stuff. Yeah. And that when you realize what the real value thing, the thing that only you can do or contribute to the cause is your milk, that it's so freeing, right? So what we use is, I call it the MOO method, which stands for multiplied oral output.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that.
Yeah, and so what you just think, like the fastest bandwidth way to get your ideas into the world is through your mouth. Yeah. Until we figure out how to put the chip in your head. Yeah. So right now, that when you can talk, and as soon as you record it, like doing things like this would be the same conversation that we would have if we were just sitting downstairs having a drink. We might talk for 2 hours having the same conversation, but nobody got any value out of it except for us.
Yeah.
So when you record it, now you have the opportunity it's digitized, and now you've got the opportunity to distribute this on whenever they want to watch it, they can watch it. You can transcribe it, and from that, take out certain chunks of it and distribute those as an article.
Well, that's my goal, is like each episode to turn into at least 30 pieces of content per episode.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you get these 1 minute sound bites with a link to
blog posts, emails,
all of it. So you're doing the right thing. Yeah. But all of that, still now, a lot of people, when they're doing content marketing, they're confusing being nice to people with an orchestrated system, right? That there's no way for how to connect with people, no way to turn that into a conversation. Yeah. And so the big thing that I discovered was really having a determined path for people, right? Like, what is it that somebody's gonna want to do? How can we, start the ball rolling? Like most people, they take one of two approaches. They're either super aggressive, which is get the phone number, call them right now. Now's the time. Prices are going up. Inventory's down. You better get in there. Who knows what's going to happen? Probably now's the time to sell. Yeah. Trying to convince people to do things on your timeline, right? To close them, and it's not comfortable for anybody. Nobody likes to get those calls. Nobody likes to make those calls, And so rather than being too aggressive, often people take the other pole, which is too passive, where they'll say to people, if there's any way I can help you, Andrew, please feel free to reach out. And just, they'll end their email saying, if you have any questions or anything,
by the way, I'm never too busy for your referrals.
Yeah, all that stuff, which is just like, it's not taking initiative, right? It's like passing the responsibility to your clients.
Yeah, I find no one ever actually responds to those messages.
Absolutely.
It's so rare.
Right. Because we're so wired to not impose on people, right? And so I take this approach that is like hospitality. If we were at my house and I bring you in to my living room and I sit you down in the living room and I say, hey, if you're hungry or thirsty, there's lots of stuff in the fridge, go ahead and help yourself. Yeah. And I would sincerely hope that you would feel comfortable enough to do that. Odds are that you would not. Nobody would. Not any Canadian. No, our mothers didn't raise us like that. Maybe
some people with some dual citizenship.
Right, maybe, hey, wait a minute. That our mothers didn't raise us like that, right? That we would never do that. But if I sit you in the living room and I go into the kitchen and I come out with a plate of freshly baked cookies and I come right up to you, I say, hey, Andrew, would you like a cookie? It would be very difficult for you not to take the cookie.
So how do you apply that concept to real estate?
Perfect. I thought you'd never ask. So when people, let's say, when you're looking at a buyer, let's say a buyer situation, that you start to think that somebody might say, if you have any questions or anything I can help you with, please feel free to give me a call. And that's not the way we operate, right? Even you see it, and the reason I use hospitality as an example like that is because the more standardized thing, or the thing that you can count on, is if somebody says, would you like a cup of coffee, or would you like a tea? The thing that would be the more standard thing would be, are you having one? Because if you're having one, I'll have one, but don't boil the kettle for me.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody wants anybody to do that.
Standard script.
Yeah, and it is.
Yeah.
But then you take the opposite of that, is nobody would ever say, hey Andrew, if there's anything you want in the fridge, nobody would ever say, you know what, now that you mention it, would you bake me some cookies?
Yeah.
Right. Try that next time you're a guest in somebody's home.
Well, in Canada, they might actually go bake cookies.
Right, exactly. And that's so funny. But when we think about it, it's about anticipating what somebody's next step is going to be, right? Practically. Yeah. So if a buyer inquires about the lakefront homes in Winter Haven, and they're getting the list, that what are they likely to want to do? Like, what's going to trigger the next step? It might be that they want to go look at homes, but to say, and we may be planning for that, and we say, if you have any questions or anything I help you with, please feel free to email, here's my cell, call me anytime, right? But we're saying you take the initiative, instead of saying, hey, whenever you're ready, here's 3 ways we can help you find a great lakefront home. Number 1, join us for a daily tour of lakefront homes. We do tours at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock every day. Click here to join us. 2, join, because maybe people want to know how to get the money part of it right, or know how the process works, right? So we may say, join us for a homebuyer workshop. We do the homebuyer workshops at the library on the first and third Thursdays of the month, or the first Thursday of the month. And then they may want to figure out how much they can afford. And so we'll say 3, get a free home loan report, right? We monitor hundreds of different loan programs to find the best low down payment loans, lowest interest loans, lowest total cost loans. And we put all our findings together in a custom home loan report. Click here. So those 3 things are addressing the most likely next thing that's in somebody's mind. We're anticipating what they're going to want to do. Some people may just want to jump right in and look at houses. Some people might be, hey, wait a minute, I need to know how the whole process works. And some people may just want to get their money right first before they jump in, and we're ready for all 3, right? Yeah. And that's, so having that little super signature, I call it, on every email that we send is the thing that gets people to jump out. So you've been getting my emails, probably all the things. So every email that I have goes out
with one for myself now
with that super signature.
So it's an interesting one, because you have the super signature you're well known for. You have the 9-word email, which you're very well known for. But there's so many people who basically copy it exactly, but some even don't give you credit. They'll go on stage and talk about how do you feel around that? Because I've seen it happen to me. I've seen it happen to a ton of other people I know, of people basically taking their ideas for themselves. How do you kind of respond and feel about when people do that with things like the 9-word email?
I punch them right in the face. No, it's so funny that, it's like I either like to do things for free or for a lot of money. And so it's like my whole approach is that I want people to be ahead of the game with me. Like when you look at it, that the predominant thing when people come and sit in any one of these seats, it's usually that they've already made the money before they've ever come to spend the time with me. And that's a much better place to come from, rather than hiding your best stuff, right? If I'm a recording artist, or if I'm a musician or something, right? What do they do? How does that model work? What drives concert sales and drives album sales? The hit songs, right? 9-word email is a hit song. That I know that's a magic trick that people can use, get results, and they know. It's so funny. It's been out so long that the people will often like come in and give me attribution. Like when somebody's teaching it as if it's their own thing, they'll come in and like straighten out the record, which is so much better to have somebody else doing that.
Well, that was
than you
how I
doing it
actually,
yourself.
the first time I ever heard your name was I heard, it was in the real estate industry, but another speaker talking about how effective the 9-word email was for lead conversion.
Yeah.
And we didn't use your name, we just talked about how great a thing this was. And I was
Who
like,
was that? Let me write that down right now.
and then I went and I tried it. Like I made a post about it in our group. Like I just heard someone talk about this on stage, 9-word email. First comment is, oh, they must have heard that from D. Jackson.
Yeah, right.
I was like, I'm looking this guy up.
Yeah, right. That's funny, but that's what happens, right? Like that's something, and I've got such an incredible, like, a body of work that's out there that there's so much for people to dig into. We're skipping the whole parts of it, whatever. But from 1995 to 2009, Joe Stumpf and I built By Referral Only, which was a big
I know it was Joe Stumpf. I didn't realize that was.
Yeah, so Joe and I and Terry Hunnefeld built that together.
Okay.
So for that 15 years, we did big events where we would do 600 or 800 people every month for 15 years.
It was draining.
Yeah. So we had 5,000 members in our coaching program, big tens of millions of dollar company.
Okay.
And then in 2009, we stopped doing the main events. We kind of reshuffled. Joe kept the By Referral, which is still going as a digital format now. Yeah. And then I took a couple of years off. Terry retired completely off in birding and out in the desert. So I took a few years off. I had my mom went through Alzheimer's. So I was able to spend that last 3 years with her. And then I started applying everything to all kinds of other businesses, But my first love's always been real estate. And so now, last few years, we've started gogoagent.com. And then I've just started the Listing Agent Lifestyle podcast. Yeah. So it's like I'm
getting back.
Right back. I love it. It's just such a great.
So do you want that to grow into a huge?
Yeah,
like that's the goal.
No, I mean not necessarily. I'm starting this whole movement. I'm excited about the future of real estate as people are kind of like afraid of it.
I think it's got huge potential still for everyone.
And that's the thing. So that's so we've got all the tools and everything for people to apply all the things that we talk about in that listing agent lifestyle. Yeah.
So how much of your focus is now is real estate? Because I see like you do your thing, like you just returned from going all around Europe doing your events.
Yeah.
How much of your time would you say is focused kind of in the real estate industry versus, because you're also really well known in just like the marketing world as well.
Yeah.
How much of your time do you find is focused in one or the other?
It's more, I don't measure things in my time. I measure things in like what's actually happening. So it's open every day that we've got, a team of people that are just on the Go Agent team. Yeah. I do, the podcast is out every week. The emails go out every week. We've got a whole community of people and a forum and message board that's in there. So I'm very active in it. Do 2 events a year. Had a event in February for our Go Agent Mastermind, and then doing one here in Toronto in September. Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So it's one of my great loves and focuses, right?
Well, it's such a fun industry, and it's interesting because like on the marketing side, I remember I was at a networking event and it was all marketing agencies. At the time I was trying to look at like how to set up my agency. So I was going to a few agency events. And when I told people I was in the real estate, without fail, every single person was like, oh, we would never touch a real estate agent. Give me your card, we'll refer them all to you. Because they're all like, we never want to work. Like, it's like marketing agencies specifically avoid agents like the plague almost. So it's interesting when you meet someone else who loves it and dives deep into it as well.
Yeah. Well, part of it is because I realize I know what the thing is. Like I spent a lot of time and a lot of years thinking and trying to create things that real estate agents could do. Like I share with them, get them excited and have bigger aspirations of what's possible. But what I've realized is that it's not just real estate agents, it's all entrepreneurs. Most people just don't do what they could do.
Yeah.
And so the big thing that I learned in all of that is that, and a lot of people kind of use that as external blame shifting, and they go, well, real estate, they just don't do anything, right? They're you know, and I realized that the thing that realtors will do is they'll accept an incoming call that says, can you come over and help me sell my house?
Without fail.
Or, there's no, if that's the requirement, that they're happy to do that. I can get 100% compliance on that. And so that's what I've really spent all the thing. I look at it as a marketing challenge, right? That I look at it that I take that on me, that it's my failure if I can't get that to get that result for somebody. So I look at it that the reality is things are so great right now with connectivity and distributed workforces and all the virtual things that you can do, that there's really, the only thing that has to be local is really when you go to see somebody about listing their house or go to show them the house, right? So all of these things can be run decentralized, and that's really where I've been focusing. We have what we call our easy button program now, where if people, as far as getting listings, if somebody just needs to like point on the map where they want to get the listings, and then we can take care of everything up to them getting the call that says, can you come over? And that's really the that's what I'm pretty stoked about, you know?
That's such a challenge, because like when we first started losing clients who couldn't convert leads, I was like, oh, it's the agent. Now I'm trying to like reverse the idea in my head of like, you know what, enough of them are having this problem that what else can we do? Because like even when we do things to improve lead quality, it's not like we're taking it to a 40% conversion. We're taking from 1 to 2 to maybe 4 or 5.
And all you're doing when you're increasing lead quality is often you're decreasing the long term, you know, because you're eliminating the people who are
like we're just cutting down the number of people opting in.
And I look at it, this is one of the great things that I have been a big advocate for, getting people to take what I call a capital investment approach instead of an expense-based approach. That I try, if I can get people to think about their ad spend, and even the language that they use, right? Their ad spend and their conversion. When they're talking about conversion, what they're usually talking about is their 30-day convert. Run the ads today, you know, get on the phone, jump on everybody, and measure their conversion rate that these people got closed for an appointment and you got a listing kind of thing.
That's my biggest red flag is when someone says, I'll take what I make in month 1 and reinvest it in month 2 to pay for it. I'm like, this is not going to work.
Right, exactly. So I have to say to people, you know, if I can get them to think about making that same amount of money as an investment in a 12-month or 24-month CD, that they're putting the money in now and they're not expecting any result. And I say it like, it's not that I'm discounting what happens early, it's that you end up getting more of what happens early anyway, because you're taking this approach of, I'm engaging with people, and we're engaging to find who the 5-star prospects are. And we want to help the people that are ready right now, but without alienating the ones who are going to be a little bit further out, you know, and you've got longer now to demonstrate. You got longer to demonstrate that they're.
So from the like newsletter content, like you have your Lakefront Homes in Winter Haven.
Yes.
Do you do any like general newsletters outside of that, or is that like basically all the content you keep pushing out is just weekly list of homes?
Well, so what I look at is we kind of divide your business into 3 units. So we call it the before unit, the during unit, and the after unit. And I look at the before unit as the part of your business that, and I encourage people to think about them separately, as if they truly were independent businesses. And you think about the before unit as the unit of your business that finds people who want to buy and sell homes and delivers them when they're ready to your during unit. So the during unit picks up when somebody says, I want to find a house, or I want you to sell my house. You go over, you get the house listed, you go through that whole period till it closes, and then the after unit is nurturing lifetime relationships with people and orchestrating referrals. And all three of them have their own metrics that we look at. And so the metric in the before unit that we look for is a couple of things. First of all is your cost per transaction, right? So if we look at it right now, there's already an established sort of metric for this, in that what's predominant in the real estate industry is referrals. So that's already established. If I send you somebody who's going to buy a house, you'll pay 25 or 30% of the transaction to me. If it's a relocation company, you may pay up to 40% of the transaction, and people are happy to pay it, right? Because it's a guaranteed transaction. So having that established as kind of like the top line of this, that now the goal becomes, what could we do to create that kind of outcome where we get these calls from people who are ready to start looking, but we do it for less than 25%. That's what we're really looking for. With that case study with Tony, we've been running that for 4 years now. He was here a couple of weeks ago in this room for the event, and already we'll have the final tally in September, but he was already up another $130,000 or something this year on top of that one. But the case study, the 4 years, was 11-to-1 ROI. So 11 for every dollar, $11 back, right? On that portfolio of all of those leads, it gets more valuable each year, because now you've got a group of prospects. On day one, when you generate your first lead, that is, you don't know. The odds are, just straight out of the gate, that if you take 100 leads today, that if we extend it out for 2 years, that 50% of them are going to buy a home. Not necessarily with you, but they're going to buy a home or move in some way over that 2-year period. So we got a 50% chance right there. Then only 15% of them will do it in the first 90 days, 85% longer than that. So by focusing on the probability of the outcome, you've got a 50-50 chance on 100 leads that you generate today. And so when you look at it, it's like, how would you treat somebody differently if you knew that they were going to buy a house? If you could have some sort of foreknowledge of it, right? And so I take this approach of always treating people like they're 5-star prospects until they prove that they aren't, versus the default setting, which is treating them like they're not 5-star prospects until they prove that they are. Even the language that we use around leads is, are they scrubbed leads? Are they qualified leads? Are they, scored leads? All these things, like as if the default standard is that leads are somehow dirty. Right? And that you've got to make them jump through hoops to prove that they're a real prospect, right? And that I believe that people live into what you establish for them, And so you look at that, and it's like the Pygmalion effect. Have you heard of that?
No.
So there was a study in education done where they would tell teachers that a certain student was gifted, random, like not gifted at all, but they tell, Andrew's really gifted. And without fail, the teacher would treat you differently, and you would score higher other things, because you would live into her belief about you as the potential student.
Yeah.
Then they would tell a group of teachers that a student randomly was a troublemaker and not gifted, he was a remedial student. Yeah. And they would live into that. Yeah. And it was amazing that what you expect, you get, right? I believe that in life, in everything. Yeah. But when you look at that, especially among prospects, if you're treating everybody like they're a 5-star prospect, and it's okay that they're not ready to buy right now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to.
Yeah, because I hear coaches say, like, oh, if they're not buying in the next 90 days, throw them away.
You're dead to me. Yeah. That's the whole approach, right? That's really what it is. Yeah. And they're missing out on 5 times the value. What a waste, right? This is how you get 10, 11, 12, 13 times ROI on things, rather than all the marketers that are doing straight up Facebook with conversion stuff would be just thrilled if they could get a 2-to-1 would be the home run of things, right?
So when you're looking at like a 2-year basis with leads, what would you say, using like a system like you have with GoGo Agent, what would be like the average conversion rate for 2 years?
So this is where what we're doing with these case studies, right? So that's why I'm monitoring all of these things, is to see. So out of those, and this is still going on. Yeah. So when we look at, I don't remember exactly how many people responded in that first 5 months for Tony, but over the first 4 years, before he did the first transaction, 13 of them did transactions over this 4 years, and it's probably higher now, because what we're seeing on the curve is that the slope is getting steeper, because now that it's in its 5th year, you not only have this bundle of people who have been in for 1 year, you've got all the people that have been in for 2 years and 3 years and 4 years, that whatever their gestation thing is, you've got so many more people who are ripening now.
So is the 5-year study only on the leads generated in those first 5 months?
No, overall.
Over the whole 5 years.
Overall, still going. Every month.
Just adding more in.
Yes, continuing.
And how's so with Tony's example, how is he adding people into that database?
So every month, sending out postcards to a specific neighborhood. But Tony's parlayed that and become, the top agent in his MLS district. Chuck Charlton built his whole
Milton Daily Homes.
Yeah, his whole empire on the getting listings and on the Milton Daily Homes. So when I first met Chuck, I was teased like the first 3 episodes of the Listing Agent Lifestyle podcast are
Chuck, Tony,
and Ron Reed, who's a guy who's been 1 year in and had the thing where Ron's big thing was he got his first listing in the 30-day free trial of getting listings, right? So, and he went on over that next year to make 55,000. So it's like, but they're each the ghost of Christmas future. Like when I first met Chuck and Melissa, they were, young, 26, I think, or 27, young, moving out to Milton, just getting started, and it was just them. And so we, got to see this whole great growth now, and he's got one of the, greatest teams that they've built, all focused on the culture and everything there. But the foundation of everything has been daily communication with people about the properties that are coming on the market, and a super signature says, whenever you're ready, here's how to get started.
Interesting one is you do the emails of for the sellers, for the buyers.
Yeah.
Now they've bought, and there's still a lot of value in referrals. So what are you now doing to nurture people who just bought? Because statistically, they're not going to move again for 5 to 7 years.
Right. So that's where. So we have a metric for the after unit called return on relationship. And so we look at that there's some really cool data. There's a guy in England from Oxford who is an evolutionary psychologist, and he coined a term that's named after him called Dunbar's number. And what Dunbar's number, have you heard about this? So Dunbar's number is essentially the number of people that we're capable of having a relationship with. And it's 150 people is what that number is, meaning that my definition for the relationship is that if you saw somebody at the grocery store, you'd recognize them by name, you'd stop and have a conversation with them, and you know exactly your place in their life kind of thing, right? And that's the pool of people that we're talking about in your afternoon, especially people who are just starting out in real estate. They haven't helped 150 people, but they have 150 relationships, right? People who know them, like them, and trust them. And so we look at measuring your return on that group by doing a what we call your return on relationship, and that number is, we take 150 people that you know, and we divide it by the number of transactions that you did that are repeat or referral, right? So repeat or direct, like this is my friend that bought a house with me, or a referral from somebody, okay? So where our gold standard is a 20% return on relationship, meaning that we should be able to generate 30 transactions from a group of 150 people.
Is that like a year?
Yeah. Wow. And so, now that's a we've got lots of people that happens. Chuck and Melissa are well over 30% in that repeat.
So how do you get that out of the 150?
Okay, so the first thing that you have to understand is that people want to refer people. We always want to have a guy. We love that, right? Societally, that's what we're wired for. And that goes all the way back. This is why Robin Dunbar's work is so important as an evolutionary psychologist. When we were tribal, when we were hunter-gatherers, it was critical for tribe safety that you know all the people in your tribe, so that if I don't recognize you and know you, you're a danger and a threat, right? So when tribes got to be 150 people or bigger, they would split because they would be safer, to have that. And so when you think about that, we would always, everything was for the good of the tribe. We're all pooling together to keep ourselves safe, to share good things, protect us from bad things. And so it was a survival thing. And deep down, I've extrapolated from his work here, that our status in the herd or the tribe is really like important to us, right? And so if you think about it, we're out gathering, and I see you, I'm on my way back to camp, and I see you coming the other way, and I've got this arm full of blueberries, and I say to you, hey, there's a great blueberry patch right over the hill over there. And I'm now giving you something valuable that I've established my value in the tribe or the herd. But if we were going to cull the herd today, I'm valuable because I know where the blueberries are, right? And you're a loafer right now that you're taking advantage of. You're riding on my coattails that I got this thing. So you feel this thing that you have to exchange that to balance that out by telling me, oh yeah, well, over there by that tree there was a lion earlier, so watch out for that. Now we're even, right? You gave me valuable information, I gave you valuable information. You stay full, I stay alive, and everybody wins. So we're always like that. And that's why if we go to Starbucks and I buy your drink today, then tomorrow it's gonna be compelling for you that it's your turn. You know it, right? We feel this weight. We're always having these checks and balances in our minds. And if we go 2 times, maybe you forgot, but the 3rd time, if I'm constantly buying, it's like a society. He's a welcher. He's not, right?
Not pulling his weight.
He's not pulling his weight. So all of that to understand that we are used to referring people, and we do it as a survival mechanism. We're worried, we're wired for it. And that changes the whole dynamic of why and how you approach the situation.
Yeah.
So when we look at it, that you have to overcome this idea that people are referring you as a favor to you, which they're not. They're doing it because it makes them look good and feel good, right? So when you get past that, now we can look at how do referrals actually happen, the mechanics of referrals. And so all referrals happen as a result of conversation.
Yeah.
So we're in conversation, and three things have to take place. They have to notice that the conversation's about real estate. They have to think about you, and they have to introduce you to the person they're having the conversation with. All three of those have to fire in order for a referral to take place. Now, when we were doing the big real estate events, 600 or 800 people, I'd have 10 people stand up and tell me the story of the last referral that they got, right? 8 out of 10 times, the story that I heard was that you would tell me, all I wanted to hear was the client and how the referral actually happened, right? So you would tell me that Chuck called me up and said that he was friends with my client, Nick, and that you could help me, that I could help him buy a house. That's 80% of the referrals that we get are passive referrals like that. The other 20% are what I call reactive referrals, where Nick might call you up. They would say, Nick called me up, my client Nick called me and said, hey, I was just talking with my friend Chuck, he's thinking about buying a house, you should give him a call. That's a reactive referral now, right? He's calling, giving you, but now you have to do something to connect with him and make that happen. But what I never heard was what I call an orchestrated referral, where you pay attention and you look for opportunities to make this kind of thing happen. So what I encourage people to think about is taking this approach, I call it Market Maker Monday, where on Monday you stop, you look around, and you think, who am I showing houses to this week? Or who am I going to see about selling their house this week? And like real people that you're actually going to have in the car this week. And then you start looking, one of the things we do is take your top 150, and we take the data from GoGo Agent and we put it in on a Google Map overlay that drops a pin where all of your top 150 live. So now you look at it and you say, let's say I'm showing condos in Yorkville. And if I look through 3 of my top 150 happen to live in Yorkville. And so I would look at that and I would send you an email and say, hey, Andrew, I'm showing condos in Yorkville this weekend, and there's only a couple for sale. Have you heard of anybody in your building talking about selling? Maybe we can match them up with this couple from New York or whatever, right? That's an orchestrated thing that odds are that you maybe know somebody in your building or in your townhouse complex or whatever it is. Yes. And it gives you a chance to look good because if you had heard of somebody, if your next door neighbor that you talk with, maybe they're living in a 2-bedroom condo and they're just about to have their second child and they're going to move out into the suburbs and get a house now, that you say, my neighbors were just talking about that.
You're the hero now.
you're the hero. That's the thing, is that it gives people a chance to be the hero. So all we're doing is looking for opportunities to do that.
It's brilliant.
So we have something we call the world's most interesting postcard. Knowing that this is how referrals actually happen, what we try and do is hack this. Now, how can you orchestrate this in a way that makes it happen more often? Right? So when I look at, I'm always looking for things that are like the minimum viable way, minimum effective dose to make something happen. And so you look at it that a lot of times what people do is they'll put together a newsletter, a client newsletter, which is, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of expense, and when I look at what boxes does that tick, right? How can we tick those boxes in the most effective way? So we put together this, it's a fun looking postcard, bright yellow. It's got Einstein on the front and 2 columns of about 16 different like facts or interesting things that you might not know. And on the back, it's just a carrier though, because one of the boxes that you tick is a touch point that you're saying, oh, there's Andrew. This is from Andrew. That makes you've made an impression in their mind now that it's interesting that there's...
Are those points real estate related or just interesting points?
Interesting facts, just stuff that you might use in conversation. See, all the underlying thing, how all of this like works together is to make you an interesting conversationalist, right? Yeah. So you're saying things somebody's talking about, because when you've got a little interesting tidbit that you're waiting for an opportunity to bring this up, right? Because then you look valuable, right? So in conversation, that's what we're trying to make happen. Now, all of this stuff, you don't even need to know all the psychology of how it all works, but just know that it's there, that's why this is happening. Then on the back side of the card, we have a graphic that looks like a Post-it note that we put a different note in each month. And we start with the same pattern. We all say, just a quick note, in case you hear someone talking about insert high probability conversation here. Yeah. And then we have a little bit of support for that. And then if you hear someone talking about this, give me a call or text me, and I'll get you this to give to them. Yeah. So that's the pattern that we're using, right? So we look through and we say, the way I frame it with people is, imagine if we could plant a chip in your client's ears and all your top 150. And when we're alerted to certain trigger words, you get the red bells go off and you can listen in on the conversation. We got a referral conversation in Sector 9, and you can listen in and whisper in their ear what to say, right, to turn that into a referral. First of all, it would shock you to see how often people are in conversations about real estate, either directly or peripherally.
The most popular topic.
Absolutely, yeah. And what has to trigger next, remember, is that they think of you. Yeah. So if we're each month sending out something and starting out, just a quick note in case you hear someone talking about this, that when we send that 3 times to somebody, they recognize there's a pattern here, right? Yeah. You send it once, you can't derive a pattern from one data point. But I send it again, it's like, I remember that you did that again. Then the third, oh, I get it, I get one every month. Yeah. And when you plant that little seed of a conversation, it's like if I say to you, hey Andrew, just a quick note in case you see any pink elephants. If you see a pink elephant, I'd love to take pictures of exotic animals. So if you see a pink elephant, give me a call or text me. And that would be like an instruction that I would want. Now, if you go out in the street and you see a blue giraffe, that's going to be remarkable enough that it triggers, you're going to think of me anyway, because I said the pink elephant, but you're going to call and maybe say, hey, I just saw a blue giraffe. Is that, it's not the overt thing. And then by the 3rd month, if I say, hey, just a quick note in case you see a purple hippopotamus. Now you recognize there's a pattern of exotic, multicolored animals, right? And it's the same way with our clients, that if each month we're instructing them to pay attention to these certain real estate related conversations, every time a real estate conversation comes up, they're going to think about us. Now just that alone is going to increase the number of referrals that you get, because you're only one step away from a referral happening. Right? Like, remember, now the 3rd step is that they've got to introduce you to the person. Because sometimes you'll see, and if that 3rd step doesn't fire, then that's what happens. Then you run into them at the grocery store and they say, hey, did my friend John ever give you a call? He was going to be selling his house. Oh, that was months ago. I haven't. No, I never heard from him. Oh man, they're gone now. They're out in BC. But whatever it was, and then they say, I tell people about you all the time. I tell everyone about you.
But there's no...
And then you look at it and there's no calls. You're not getting any emails. Nobody's calling you. Yeah, so what we want to do is, it's not their job to sell people on you. They're doing the best thing for you. They want to tell everybody about you, and they think they're doing the right thing. But what we really want to do is we want to hone that in and get them to call you.
Yeah.
Not tell them to have their friend to call you. So the way we do that is we offer something to give them, to give to their clients so that they're going to get the value. They're going to get the reward. If I've got a book called How to Buy Your First Home, and that I say to somebody, just a quick note in case you hear someone talking about buying their first home. A lot of times buying a home is constantly changing. There's lots of things that are scary about it. If you hear someone talking, give me a call or text me. I'll get you a copy of our free book, 6 Steps to Home Ownership, that you can give to them. Gives them all the tips of how to go through the process. Now that makes them look like a thoughtful, caring person who went out of their way to get something nice for them. Right. Now we're putting the onus on the person who actually knows you, likes you, and trusts you to do it. And this kind of programming works like crazy. I mean, I had something that was both startling and amazing happen at the same time a couple of months ago. In our Go-Go Agent forum, somebody was asking, there was a post that said, does anybody know where I could get carpet installed today, same day? And what I noticed happen in my brain was, without my permission, my brain started singing 800-588-2300 Empire today. And I realized in that moment that had been smuggled into my brain against my will, had been living there rent-free for over 20 years, never thought of or acted on until that moment when it was triggered by somebody saying, does anybody know where I can get carpet today? Carpet today? What? I mean, it was like I snapped into action, and I thought, that is exactly what's happening with our world's most interesting postcard. That after months of, just a quick note in case you hear someone talking about, just a quick note in case you hear someone talking about, give me a call or text me, give me a call or text me, give me a call or text me. That's the whole pattern that we're embedding in somebody's subconscious brain, right? Deep conscious.
That's awesome.
That's where we get now, all of a sudden, people's referrals go up. When we first did this with Julie Matthews in Winter Haven, we for a year ran her before unit and after unit out of our office. And when she went from 11 repeat and referral transactions, and her whole after unit marketing thing was on in December, she would send everybody all of her clients, her top 150, send them a magnet calendar that they could put on the fridge, kind of thing. And that was it. That was all she did all year. No newsletter, no nothing like that. But she'd been in business a long time. People love her. She ended up, getting 11. And that was typical in that 10, 9, 12 referrals. First year, we send the postcard. She got 33 repeat and referral transactions from that.
That's wild.
Just the whole thing. Even Chuck, at the time, they were doing, this was 10 years ago now when we first started doing the world's most interesting postcard, that they were doing 19, 21, 20 repeat and referrals. On top of, they have a really vibrant, active after unit, client parties, all of this stuff. They do, movies, movie things. And then we added the world's most interesting postcard, and the referrals immediately went up in the 30 range, right? So that kind of thing, we just see that happening again and again. You asked, what would I do if I was just starting out? Is I'd rally around my top 150. I'd recognize that's my greatest asset right now. And I would start with that, because that way, for $150 a month or whatever it might cost to send the postcard to those people, the highest ROI on that possible.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we measure that. That's the thing. And I look at it that I can overlay on anybody's business, right? Like I go in and I can have that conversation with somebody, take all of the business that they did, break it down, attribute it to before unit, attribute it to after unit, look at what's your return on relationship, how's your prospect portfolio yield doing, and then in the during unit, another metric that we have is what we call your listing multiplier index. And so we look at all the listings that you take, and we kind of have people go back over the last 10 listings and calculate how many points they got out of 50 on the last 10 listings. So you get a point for the listing got sold, you get 1 point. If you found the buyer, you get another point. If you found a buyer that bought another house because of the marketing you were doing for that one, you get a point. If you get another listing in the neighborhood, or that buyer has a house to list, you get another point. And a referral from the seller before the transaction is over, you get another point. So 5 possible points on each listing. 10 listings, 50 points. When I present that to people for the first time in a group, typically what they'll end up with is 8 to 15 points is what people will typically get, right? Either
sounds like it makes sense.
Yeah, it does, right in that range. Then we take that number and we divide it by 10 to get your listing multiplier index, which would be like a golf handicap, or your bowling average or whatever. That means that right now your current system for handling and marketing listings yields, if you had 15 points, meaning you got all 10 sold, you double ended a couple, and maybe you found another buyer or got another listing, that if your listing multiplier index is 1.5, that means for every listing you take, right now, your current system is yielding 1.5 transactions, 1.5 commissions. Now, by focusing on this, by focusing on looking at it, what we've been able to find in our GoGo agent, like in the leader board, clubhouse leaders are over 3.5 on those. So now to go and focus a little bit on it, I mean, Tony Kelsey really has taken to this as something that, he's well over 3, that every listing you take now is worth 3 transactions. I'm still waiting for somebody to get to like this 4-minute mile, for somebody to break the 4 barrier, but we measure and we have, awards for it in February at our academy there.
Every time people talk about like leveraging your listing, it's always like one deal from your listing.
Right.
Like you should get a listing, and then you should get one other deal out of it.
Right.
And that's what people talk to us like, well then if you get 3 or 4.
That's the whole point.
That's exponential.
But in order to do that, you have to have a system around it. You have to have a plan for it. The saddest thing that I ever hear are people saying, well, our market's really hot. We just price it right, put it in the MLS, and I don't have to do just listed cards, or I don't have to. Right, that's what they're saying. I don't have to, which is just so short-sighted that they're missing out. You just want to shake them because it's such a perishable opportunity.
Yeah, it's just like they're in it for the short term. It's not that long-term thinking.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So if people wanted to like join GoGo Agent or learn more about you, what's your 3 ways that you can help them?
Okay, that's a good thing. So the first thing I would say is to go to listingagentlifestyle.com and you can download a copy of the listing agent.
Links in the description.
Like the Listing Agent Lifestyle book. And then there's, I think I don't know how many podcasts there are right now, but there's a lot of podcasts where it's all get familiar with this all these things that we talk about. And then gogoagent.com, we have a free 30-day trial, truly free, no credit card required. Come on in, see what it's all about. We've got all of the programs for getting listings, for finding buyers, converting leads, multiplying your listings, all of that. We'll greet you when you come in, so you're not going to be just kind of left alone to hang out there. And then in September 8th and 9th, we've got our Listing Agent Lifestyle Summit coming up right here in Toronto. So
awesome. So how can they find that?
So when you come in, well, I'll send people a welcome email when they go to Listing Agent Lifestyle. And so I'll let them know about the event, or you can send me an email, dean@deanjackson.com.
Perfect. Really appreciate you coming on.
Awesome.
That was awesome.
Thanks,
man.
man.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stay tuned for next week when we have another guest on.
Wow.